always believed in the stories of every fan of Descendants of Zombies, because in the audience at the Worlds Collide tour, it just wasn't millions of cell phones lighting up the venue. They were millions of stories. And when you really think about it, every fan of Descendants of Zombies truly has a story. They just want to be seen and heard by millions of people who feel the same way they do. Very passionate about the characters and the stories they've loved so much. You guys pretty much grew up with Descendants of Zombies, no matter who you are, what your age is, what your situation is, or where you come from. You all have a story, and you just want that story to be seen and heard by more people than ever before. So upon creating this YouTube channel, one of the greatest challenges I ever faced was getting this niche to fall in love with the videos that I would create. The greatest challenge I've ever had is winning all of your hearts. And lo and behold, somewhere or somehow, I was able to do it. I put all my time, all my money, and all my incredible effort behind a niche that I believed in just as much as all of you. And I know it's very difficult to realize that a guy loves Descendants of Zombies with all of his heart, but I truly do, because I saw what people like Kylie Cantrell, Ruby Rose Turner, and Malia Baker had to endure. They were faced with a lot of criticism head-on. Upon the release of The Rise of Red back in 2024, they faced nothing but criticism. People pretty much didn't want anything to do with this new take on Descendants whatsoever, because they remembered the original trilogy, the original core four, Dove Cameron, Sophia Carson, Cameron Boyce, and Boo Boo Stewart, and what they did for this franchise, what they truly meant to a franchise, that people believe should have never had anything else done with it. But what Descendants of Zombies eventually became was something far greater than we ever imagined it would be 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, Descendants of Zombies was just really the beginning of a story, and a very beautiful story at that, about how a girl named Mal came from out of nowhere as the daughter of Maleficent, and all she ever wanted to become was something far greater than her mother Maleficent ever dreamed that she would become. Pretty much every character in Descendants had their own story, while many of them never had the chance to have their story told the way they had dreamed of having their story told. They all made a great contribution to this franchise, and they are the sole reason why Descendants of Zombies is in the position that it's in, a position to really take over. Now we're seeing Descendants of Zombies characters showing up on the red carpets at the Oscars and the Grammys and Disney up front and the Disney D23 Expos. Because Descendants of Zombies has gotten to this point not just because of their contributions, but because of how much you have believed in these contributions. You take my story, a story about a loser who came from nothing, who was just simply a mere Disney fan, that nobody had seen or heard from ever before. Now, many of you who are wrestling fans probably watched me years ago when I used to do a podcast for pro wrestling, and I spent most of my time interviewing wrestlers, which was never the most enjoyable aspect of my career. Along the way, I met a lot of people who never really could make sense of why I was a Disney fan, and ultimately I would choose Disney over anything else in my lifetime I ever had the opportunity to do or create for. Out of every opportunity, I just wanted the chance to create something special for every Disney fan, which eventually became every fan of Descendants of Zombies. And I quickly realized that within this niche consists of the most incredibly supportive people with tremendous heart and dedication of their own. You guys believe in this franchise so much, enough to keep it alive for over 10 years. Descendants of Zombies kind of just randomly showed up on July 31st, 2015. Question: on July 31st, 2015, where were you when Descendants of Zombies first premiered on Disney Channel at 7 p.m.? I was sitting at home thinking my life really sucked, and then Descendants of Zombies just kind of happened for me. I was lying on my bed, looking up at my ceiling, thinking my life was a disaster, and then Descendants of Zombies just kind of happened. And I thought to myself, after girls had shown up at my door for a number of years, dressed up as their favorite Descendants of Zombies characters, kind of persuading me to create a Descendants of Zombies YouTube channel. After many years of this reoccurring thing happening on Halloween and Christmas, I thought to myself, and yes, I do celebrate Jewish Hanukkah, but you haven't got to tell anybody, how cool would it be to create a Descendants of Zombies YouTube channel that would go on to steal the hearts of millions of people? And at that time, I had no idea how I would ever do it, how I would make people believers in such things as zombie apocalypses, and how fairy tales could really happen, have a chance of happening at least, and make more people believers in forever, and following their dreams while pursuing them. Because the greatest feeling you could ever have in this lifetime is realizing that your dream is happening before your very eyes. You know, no matter how far away you seem to be from your dream, you guys do know your dream can eventually happen for you. What it comes down to is how much you believe in that dream. You know, I've always wanted to be a voice of an animated character, or be everybody's favorite action hero. And if you ask me, I have no idea how it would ever go down in history for being everybody's favorite action hero, but I thought of it as being the coolest thing ever. To do the stunts and to do all the green screen scenes. And I would have loved the chance to have done that. I would have loved to have gotten a call up from Disney just to audition for Descendants of Zombies. And I give you my word, just as sure as I'm wearing the colors of Ben this evening, the color blue, I would really put my heart into a character that I could only ever hope that you guys would love with all of your heart. Because in order to bring a character to life, why do you guys think you've always had favorite characters? And most of them were the girls from the cast of Descendants of Zombies. Very few of you love the guys because the girls give you so much inspiration. Now, I know a lot of you do love the guys like Cameron Boyce and Boo Boo Stewart. You try to get into them. Cameron Boyce will undeniably have a legacy for forever, for an eternity, because he became everybody's favorite guy from Descendants because of the memories he left behind. The thing is, you take so much inspiration away from the girls because the girls are forever strong. And they believe in themselves just like they want you to believe in yourself. And I think that's why everybody took away a great deal of inspiration from characters played by Dove Cameron, characters brought to life by Sophia Carson, who eventually became characters portrayed by Kylie Cantrell and Malia Baker, who I've had a special place in my heart for a very long time because of their friendship and how they really taught us how to value friendships and the true meaning behind friendships that kind of just happen for us. You probably have a friend that you probably never talked to for probably years, probably 10, 15 years. And you guys do realize that eventually your friends find their way back to you. No matter how far apart you may be, no matter how long it's been since you've talked to that friend that you one time in your life considered your best friend. No matter how far apart you are from that friend, they always find their way back to you, and you always find your way back to each other. And if it's meant to be, in terms of relationships, they always do eventually have a way of working out for the better. And if it doesn't have a way of working out for the better, then it obviously was never meant to be. The thing about Mal and Ben's story was it was the beginning of a beautiful love story that would go on to touch the hearts of millions of people. And so many people took away a great deal of inspiration from that love story and felt inspired by it because of just how beautiful the music was that helped tell the story and how these characters expressed so many emotions. Because how to bring a character to life comes with applying character traits. And many of you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but that's how you bring a character to life. You apply character traits that will eventually separate your character from every other character on the set of Descendants of Zombies. And that's what Dove Cameron did very effectively. And that's eventually what Kylie Cantrell would do because she patterned her character over Dove Cameron's character Mal. And I've heard Kylie Cantrell make the comparisons about how Red is different from Dove Cameron's character Mal all the time. And she's almost making out Dove Cameron's character to be an inferior character to Princess Red. But I've kind of seconded that. And I've challenged that because Kylie Cantrell is a very different character. And her perception on what a Descendants villain should be has always been different. And very far out there from what Dove Cameron's ever was. She was a far stronger character. She believed in empowerment. She believed in encouraging you to pursue your dreams, which is something I never really heard Dove Cameron do. Dove Cameron was pretty much just there to get paid, play a character, and leave. And that was evident in the original Descendants trilogy. I know that Dove Cameron has a following that is pretty amazing, but I think that Kylie Cantrell is well on her way to having an even more impressive following for just how much impression she's left, how much of an impression she's left on all of our hearts for being an empowered character, for exemplifying strength, and really putting a greater emphasis on just how much further loving somebody and having a friendship that stands the test of time can really take you in this lifetime, because it can really take you further. The thing that I've admired about Kylie Cantrell is she just wants to be friends with everybody. She's never really chosen to judge anybody, and she's always pursued her dreams, while encouraging you to do the exact same thing, to be strong, to feel confident, to feel comfortable in your surroundings. And I think that's what a lot of us kind of struggle with doing, because acceptance sometimes is very difficult to find in this world and come upon. And when you eventually do come upon acceptance, the feeling you get from achieving it is the greatest feeling in the world. When I was in high school, I was never really the most popular guy in the class. I was always bullied. People always had a different opinion about me because of my interests stemming from Disney and pro wrestling and Pokemon cards and Pogs and playing video games. I was a real loser. It wasn't until you guys came into my life that I saw incentive in what I was doing and it really found a purpose. If there was one thing that I took away from Descendants of Zombies, it was really finding a purpose and being able to connect with people on both a professional and a personal level more times than I'll probably ever be remembered for or ever given credit for. You know, so many people love this YouTube channel for how I can tell stories about the times that I spent with my sister and my parents and how, you know, I really value the time that I had because at a really young age I realized that, you know, nothing lasts forever and time always has this way of elapsing through the hourglass. That's why there's such a greater appreciation for the pocket watch up and coming in Descendants 5 with Wonderland. We don't know what the consequences of time travel are. They have yet to be revealed, but we do know they are going to be significant changes because Red and Chloe have apparently created a new villain, and of course now Red has a sister. And she has a beautiful introductory ballad called Perfect Princess. Pink is now having fun, and she seems like she's really having the time of her life. You couldn't have asked for a better person to play the role of Pink. And I'm really excited to see what Pink will offer to this franchise in the way of brand new storylines, brand new ideas, and how her creative energy will really come to the forefront in defining what a Descendants character of this new generation should really all be about. The thing is, Pink is also a very strong person and a very strong character, and she's played by a very dedicated person to all of you. She is so excited for all of us to meet her, and I think that because she is so excited for all of us to meet her, we can really find time and incentive in presenting her with the same chances we gave to Dove Cameron and Kylie Contrell a very long time ago, and that is something most certainly I intend on doing. But I can't do it without your love and support. I can't do it without your love and support for all these new characters that you likewise are just as excited to meet. So it doesn't give any critic or any journalist or any column writer the right to come on here and choose to criticize Descendants of Zombies without ever giving it much of a chance. Zombies pretty much faced the same thing upon its release in 2018. Everybody pretty much didn't want to give Zombies a chance, but it very quickly went on to become one of the most celebrated sci-fi coming-of-age comedies of all time. It was both a comedy and a romance, which was really a coming-of-age time for these stars. Meg Donnelly was only 16, trying to desperately make a name for herself in the industry, and she was able to do it because so many millions of people believed in her. But you know, when I look at it, 1 million subscribers is never enough for Meg Donnelly. She deserves 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, even 5 million subscribers. Kylie Control deserves the same. Because what I've seen coming from them is tremendous heart and tremendous dedication. Because it is very difficult to make a name for yourself and leave an everlasting impression within this industry. Believe you me, I've seen many people come into this industry, come and go, and sometimes, more often than enough, crash and burn because of the pressure they're always under, the pressure they face, always being judged, always being questioned, always feeling never good enough. I've heard your favorite Descendants of Zombie stars more often than enough say they feel as if they're never good enough because they're never living up to a certain standard or expectation. They've always been good enough in my eyes, and I always wanted to say something nice about people like Meg Donnelly, who I think is an exceptionally beautiful, talented girl, and I think she still has a long way to go. What Meg Donnelly is really doing is not really figuring out her place in the world, but she is really writing the chapters of her story very beautifully. And she's writing the chapters of her story slowly enough that we all have the chance to be a part of it and really notice it. You know, she is somebody who I think never gets enough attention. You know, I'd love to see her get 2 million, 3 million, 4 million subscribers. I'd love for Kylie Control to do the same. And how that can happen is if more people like me jumped on the bandwagon of Descendants of Zombies and rode it through to the sunset, because there's always been something so beautiful about every star's sunset, and I've always believed that every star's sunset should set more beautifully than they've ever had the chance to. Never having to face criticism, never having to be subjected to being judged. That's what I wanted to do something about, because I didn't think your favorite Descendants of Zombie stars deserved all the criticism they did. So that's the reason why I created this YouTube channel, to let all of you know that there was hope for them and we were going to be a part of the future, because I found there were too many people out there trying to discourage our hopes and dreams of anything ever happening or anything ever coming of Descendants of Zombies. These are very powerful franchises with very powerful stories that have left people in a state of amazement and captivation, myself included. You know, years ago I saw Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place make it to the big screen, and I thought to myself years later, why can't this happen for Descendants of Zombies? If Hannah Montana can have a Best of Both Worlds concert tour with the Jonas Brothers, make it to theaters, so can Descendants of Zombies. It's only now we're hearing discussions about Hocus Pocus 3 finally coming to theaters for the first time in over 30 years. And Descendants has been a very dedicated part of all of our lives, so why not have this thing go to IMAX? Why not have it go to theaters worldwide to give it more exposure? I guess it has something to do with a bigger budget having to be allocated, more creative writing having to come to the forefront. And you can really have that. All you really need are creative minds. Why do you guys think that Descendants and Zombie Stars are so excited to let you know what the release window is for the Wicked Wonderland chapter or the upcoming Zombies 5? They are so excited about it because maybe they've known all along when Descendants 5 Wicked Wonderland is coming out, but because Disney has them under restrictions where they can't tell you, they have to hold themselves back from doing it. But if I was a creative writer and producer at Disney, I would allow them to tell you when it was coming out because all you really need are creative minds. And I really believe in Disney's case, that's been lacking for a number of years. Disney is not as creative as it was years ago, so the storylines are not as detailed or as advanced. And, Disney loves to create stories that are very simplified, very easy for people to understand, and that's why they never go as deep as what people probably anticipate or expect that they will. I think that with Red having a new love interest in Descendants 5 Wicked Wonderland, it really opens up the door to explore a deeper story that can be taken deeper than any Descendants Star story has ever been taken before. There's a chance to hear the words I love you like we finally heard in Zombies 4 Dawn of the Vampires between Zed and Addison. And I specifically watched Zombies 4 Dawn of the Vampires just to hear those words coming from their mouths because I knew how much they meant to all of you and I knew how much they meant to each other most of all. They really meant the world to each other, and you see it all the time, not just in front of the camera, but off of the camera. There was a point in time when they actually lived together, Zed and Addison, because they loved each other so much, and they were the best of friends. You never really have to say you love somebody to their face or to their eyes. You just simply have to show it in their actions. And the thing is, people show it in their actions all the time. They just never realize it. And I think that these stars of both Descendants and Zombies have shown how much they love each other and how much they appreciate each other just simply by how they show it in their actions without ever having said the words, I love you. And that really is a special thing. I think this really is a coming-of-age moment for a lot of people, really finding themselves in a world that oftentimes is very difficult to find acceptance from within. But believe me, we all do get to that point where we do find it. Because I've always believed, if I could quote Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, who was one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters of all time, everybody has a light, and everybody does eventually find that light. And as long as we continue to support people like Kylie and Malia and Freya, they all will eventually find their light and find their greater purpose. And that's what I intend on doing. Because I've always wanted to leave behind a legacy, and I've never ever wanted to be forgotten. I've always wanted to take away a great deal of inspiration from whatever I was a fan of, or whoever I was a fan of, and your favorite Descendants of Zombie Stars have inspired me to do pretty much everything in the book, everything I could think of. Invest all my time and investments into this YouTube channel that I created for so many dedicated people who love this franchise with all their heart. And I've created thousands of videos about Descendants and Zombies, perhaps more than anybody who's loved Descendants and Zombies with all their heart. Because pretty much the majority of people who claim to love Descendants and Zombies are pretty much just AI fan sites or AI YouTube channels. This is an original contented YouTube channel. This is originally contented based. And it provides you with commentaries about how somebody thinks about what's going to happen in Descendants and Zombies and thinks of these stars. So because it's original content that has been created, that's what pulls everybody in. That's what allows me the chance of achieving my dream and my greatest goal of stealing everybody's heart for how I felt about Descendants and Zombies, about the music, how my favorite song was always Life is Sweeter When You Are, because that song was really a bubblegum type song. There is a reason why they referred to it as a bubblegum type song, and Ruby's character Bridget was referred to as a bubblegum type character, because she was just so easy to fall in love with. And if you allow yourself to fall in love with these characters that sometimes feel very insignificant because they're overshadowed by the greater purpose of Descendants of Zombies in the eyes of writers and producers, if you allow yourself to fall in love with characters more often, you will always take away a greater appreciation for not only them, but for their story. Because it's not just about telling a story. It's all about how. And the key word is how. How you can tell that story. And how much you, as a part of the audience, my audience, believes in that story and values that story and values the lessons and hears the lessons and takes something special away from the lessons that you hear about and learn about in these stories. They may be fantasies, but there are people out there who believe in these fantasies being real than ever before. Now that may be coming from a guy who thinks that everything they saw on TV, from pro wrestling to horror movies to Descendants of Zombies, was real. When I watched Descendants of Zombies for the first time ever, I was like, oh my God, this is real. You know, a zombie apocalypse could happen at any given moment. I better bolt my doors and windows shut. And believe you me, I did. Or a fairy tale can really happen for us, can really come to life. And I found time in encouraging that, because you haven't lived until you believe in fairy tales having a chance of being real. You believe in forever existing. And that's truly what Descendants of Zombies has allowed us to do. It's really allowed us to become stronger people. People are joining the gym now because they see Clarke lifting weights heavier than what she is. People are feeling more comfortable about their own lives and their own dreams because of what Clarke has illustrated. And that is only just simply to believe in your dreams, no matter what your dreams are, along with every other character who believes in the same thing. I've always believed that your favorite Descendants of Zombie stars' hearts are obviously in the right place, and they should be encouraged to pursue their dreams or whatever they want to achieve the most out of their own lives for, having been a part of, which is really all of our stories. And we can allow these stories to continue for just a little while longer, and people like me can continue to be a part of this unbelievable soundtrack and these unreal stories that I've loved having the chance to be a part of. This is your story forever and always. This is about what you want talked about, what you want discussed. And I've just felt so honored to be a part of your story for as long as I've had the chance to be. Thank you so much to everybody who has recently subscribed here. We are currently up to 3,576 subscribers. Somebody just subscribed. And again, it's always my honor to welcome new people in here. And if it is your first time here watching these videos, hi. My name is Jonathan Clarke, and I've been around for a very, very long time. I premiered Once Upon a Time ago, and that was a very long time ago. Many of you probably were never born. But even though you probably were never born, I always had a greater appreciation to take away from stories such as Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, even a Goofy movie, which was one of my favorite movies of all time. Because Max always believed that Goofy's goal and Goofy's purpose in life was always to drive his son crazy. And while he may have driven his son crazy, the thing was, Goofy always wanted Max to know that he loved him. Just as your favorite Descendants of Zombies characters 30 years later have wanted you to know the exact same thing. The stories about Disney princesses were always some of my favorite because they not only exemplified beauty and intelligence and empowerment, they exemplified just how much when you love somebody, the greatest love stories can be told and forever and always be cherished, like Belle and Beast or Cinderella and Prince Charming. There was always a beautiful story in these Disney classics that you see behind there on my wall. And I've always believed in those stories. And there can be just as beautiful a story believed in and trusted in from Descendants of Zombies. All you really have to do is believe in those stories and never ever let go. And how you believe in those stories is by holding a special place in your heart for those stories and those characters and those voices who brought those animated and live-action characters to life. For many of us for the first time ever because it's what we grew up with. And it will forever and always hold a very special place in our hearts because of that fact and forever and always remain true. Thank you so much forever and always as the sun begins to set behind me once again this evening for having chosen this YouTube channel as your favorite Descendants of Zombies YouTube channel. And hello once again to everybody who have found me for the first time once again in almost 20 years because of this YouTube channel. I'm so honored to have you all once again in my presence to share your stories with me and for me to share my story with you likewise. It's forever and always been my honor. Thank you so much for always and forever having made this YouTube channel your favorite Descendants of Zombies YouTube channel that has ever been created. And as always, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for having watched these videos.